Hey friends, I'm so glad that y'all are here with me today. My name is Alexis Dauphin, and I'm an associate broker with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, Expect Realty, right here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I decided to put this together because this is the stuff that I wish every seller knew before they ever put a sign in the yard. You know, the stuff that honestly would have saved sellers a whole lot of money and a whole lot of stress. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's sell smart. So, a little bit about me so you know who's teaching you this stuff today. I have been licensed since 2017 and I work with buyers and sellers all across Harrison County, Hancock, and Jackson County. And my whole philosophy in one sentence is informed clients make better decisions. That's it. I'm an education first agent, which is a fancy way of saying that I'd rather tell you the truth backed by real data than tell you what you want to hear and watch it blow up later. So when you work with me, you're not just getting somebody to stick a sign in the yard and unlock the door. You're getting somebody in your corner who will shoot you straight, even when the truth is a little uncomfortable. And some of what I'm going to tell you today may make you a little uncomfortable, but that's what we're here for today. So here's everything we're going to cover. We're going to start with your competition, and it's probably not who you think it is. Then we're going to hit the number one mistake sellers make, which costs people thousands. And we'll talk about what your home is actually worth versus what the internet says it's worth, what to fix, and just as important, what not to waste your money on, how to prep for showings, the real cost of selling, how to sell and buy at the same time without losing your mind. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about the contract itself. So I don't want you to feel like you have to memorize any of this. This is not a class. So just stick with me. And by the end, I hope that you understand this process better than most people. So let's start with something a lot of sellers don't even realize they're up against. That's right. The builder down the street is your competition. So let's dive in. I want to show you what the pressure actually looks like. So here's the deal. We have hundreds of brand new homes hitting the coast right now. And your home, your wonderful lived in home, is sitting on the market right next to a house that's never had a single person live in it. It has a shiny new warranty, a modern floor plan, the whole thing. And the builders, well, they are playing to win. So down here on the Gulf Coast, they are buying down rates, which basically means they're paying to lower the interest rate. So the buyer's monthly payment looks very attractive and more affordable. And we're talking anywhere from 3.99 ARMs for 5 years or 4.99% fixed rates at 30 years. So it is a big deal. But before you panic, you are not powerless here, not even close, because there's a whole list of things builders cannot physically give a buyer, okay? Like an established location, mature landscaping. You can't fake a 20-year-old oak tree. And that's character, and that's things that buyers want, right? So that's where we win. And my whole job is to position your home so buyers see what they'd be giving up by going new. So let's lay this out side by side. All right, so check this out. So new construction has its perks, rate buy downs, brand new roof, brand new HVAC, home warranty, pick your own finishes, no maintenance history. But I want you to look at your column. Established neighborhood with a grown-in landscaping, a known location, a specific street, a specific lot. You know exactly what you're getting, usually a bigger lot because new builds keep shrinking those. And then you have move-in certainty. Okay. No, sorry, construction's delayed 3 months. And then character, right? Real architecture with an actual identity, not house number 47 that looks exactly like 46 and exactly like 48. So the takeaway is this: we're not going to pretend to be new construction. We're going to lean hard into everything a builder can't replicate. That's your edge. All right. Now, the next section is the big one. This is the mistake that I see people, this is the mistake that I see cost people the most money: overpricing. And I got to be honest with you. If you only remember one thing from today, I want you to make it this section. The number one mistake sellers make is overpricing. And I get why it happens, but let's talk about it. All right. Number one is emotional attachment. And listen, this is human. You've got memories in that house. First birthdays, holidays, the pencil marks on the door frame where you measured the kids. But here's the hard truth. Buyers don't see your home. They see a home. They're not paying for your memories. Those go with you, right? The next thing is anchoring to the past. Well, I paid X for it, or I put 30 grand into that kitchen. Now I understand, but the market doesn't care what you paid or what you spent. It only cares what a buyer will pay today. Okay. Next, trusting the algorithm. We'll go deeper into this, but those online estimates, they have never set foot in your house. They don't know you redid the whole thing or that the neighborhood's got a junkyard view. All of those things come into consideration when pricing a home. And last, this is a sneaky one, leaving room to negotiate. So there's a myth that if you price high, you've got leverage, right? No. In reality, pricing high does not give you more room to negotiate. It gives buyers a reason to never walk through the door in the first place. And you cannot negotiate with somebody who never showed up. So let me show you exactly what happens at each price point. All right, so there's 3 ways to price, and I want you to really watch what happens with each one. So we have above market, which is testing the waters, like I like to say. And this sounds harmless, right? Let's just see if somebody bites. This is what a lot of sellers want to do. But the reality is you're going to have fewer showings and your days are going to pile up on the market, and then you're going to be forced into price reductions. Okay. Not to mention a stigma starts building and your final sales price actually ends up being lower. Okay. So testing the waters usually means you drown a little. Now at market, matching the competition, this is fine. You're going to have steady showings, reasonable timeline, normal negotiation, average results. This is good. Okay. But below market, this is where we generate the demand. And this is where it gets fun. You price it to move and you create urgency. So you're going to have strong activity in the very first week, real potential for multiple offers. And now, this is the key, you're negotiating from strength instead of begging. That is your best strategy. And I know below market sounds scary, like you're leaving money on the table, but it's actually the opposite. See, competition drives the price up. And the goal was never the highest list price. The goal is the strongest offer. So here's the piece that ties it all together: timing. So I really want you to sit with this one. Your listing will never be more powerful than the moment it goes live. Never. It's all downhill from launch day if you don't get it right. So here's the timeline. Days 1 through 14, that's your golden window. Every buyer who's been searching, every agent with a client, they all see it fresh. This is when you're going to have maximum interest and that brand new energy, right? Now, days 15 through 21, the interest will start dropping. Buyers are going to start doing this thing where they wonder, why hasn't this sold? What's wrong with it? Days 22 to 30, the stigma starts to set in. Now it's, why has this been sitting? And people assume there's a problem even when there isn't. Now, when we get to day 30 and beyond, you're cutting the price. But here's the gut punch. By then, the damage is already done. You're not getting golden window buyers anymore. And check this stat. Homes priced more than 5% over the comps sit on the market 30% longer. You don't get those first 2 weeks back. So we are not going to waste them testing the waters. We're coming out swinging. Okay. So if the online estimate isn't the answer, then what is your home actually worth? So let's talk about value and how we find value. All right. So there are a few different values floating around out there, and people mix these up constantly. So let's clear it up. There's 3 types of value. Now we have appraised value, and that's when a licensed appraiser determines the value, and it's most likely for the lender. Okay. It's based on strict comparable data, and it focuses on the structural fixed value of the home, right? And then you have an automated value, which is like your Zillow Zestimate. It's an algorithm crunching public data like bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, the lot size. Okay, it's taking data like that and it's creating a number. Now, I say this with love. It's never seen your kitchen. It doesn't know you gutted it. It doesn't know about the water view or the busy road. And it's often lagging behind what's actually happening in the local market because it's not a human. It doesn't know these things. Now, it is a nice starting point and it does give you an idea, but this is not a price. Okay. Now, then we have the market value of CMA, which is comparable market analysis. And this is what real estate agents use when we are coming up with um, a price range to list your home at. Okay. So this is what a real willing buyer will actually pay today. We get this information based off recent local sales, actual home condition, and who you're competing against right now. This is the one that we're going to build your personalized strategy on. So when your neighbor goes, well, Zillow says it's worth this, now you know why that's not the number we're going to hang our hat on. All right. Now, the two numbers that matter the most are the CMA and the appraisal. And people confuse these all the time, so let's untangle them. All right. So CMA versus appraisal. These are the two big numbers in your wholesale. So let's make it simple. The CMA, that's what I prepare for you as your agent. It's free and it's part of my listing service. And I'm going to do this before we list your home so we can nail your pricing strategy. So I want you to think of this as an expert opinion of market value. Okay. Then we have the appraisal. That's done by a licensed independent appraiser. The buyer usually pays for this unless you as a seller would like to hire a individual appraiser to appraise your home. But usually this happens after you got a contract accepted. And here's the difference. The appraisal isn't, I'm sorry. The appraisal is a binding number that the lender uses to decide whether they'll finance the deal or not. So the short version, the CMA is what sets your price going in. The appraisal confirms it once you're under contract. So one's a game plan and the other's a referee, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Now, what do we actually do to the house? And this is where I'm going to save you some money. So what to do and what not to do is just as important because I promise you there are people out there right now spending money on the wrong things and skipping the stuff that actually matters. So let's talk about the non-negotiables. So these are the things that you don't get to price around. The buyers and the home inspectors will find them every single time. Things like roof damage, active leaks, busted HVAC systems, plumbing leaks, water damage, wood rot, unsafe electrical panels, foundational structural problems, things like that that really impact the home itself. And another big one, especially down here, active termite infestation. So here's a pro tip, and it's just math. Fix it now or pay for it later with interest. Because if you leave these for the buyer to find during the home inspection, you've just handed them a crowbar. They are going to come back demanding a giant price reduction or a bunch of repairs or a credit. And it almost always costs you more than it would have cost you just to handle it up front. Okay? You lose the leverage and the money. Okay? So just take care of it. Now, the fun part. Where should you spend your money? So this is where you're going to get your real bang for your buck. Now, let's talk about what actually works. And you're going to love this because it's cheaper than you think. So number one, the highest return of anything is deep cleaning. That's it. Not a renovation, a sparkling clean kitchen and bathroom always outperform almost every expensive upgrade you can think of. And it's the best money you're going to spend. So the next thing is neutral paint. A fresh coat and a neutral color is the single most cost-effective way to make a house feel updated and move-in ready. So when buyers walk in, it just feels cared for. Not to mention it's clean, right? Fresh paint always just makes a home just feel so clean. The next thing is curb appeal. So this is actually your first impression when someone pulls up to the house. So things like fresh mulch and, trimming the bushes and things like that, pressure washing the exterior, making sure the yard is cut and edged. These are little things that we can do that are very inexpensive that really help us in the end. All right. Now, here's a quick win. I want you to swap out the dated cabinet hardware and light fixtures, right? You wouldn't have thought of this, but believe it or not, it changes everything. It changes the feel, and it's just something that I think a lot of people don't think of or they overlook, but it makes a difference. And $20 can make a room look 10 years newer. So the whole theme here is clean and neutral. We're not trying to make it your dream house. We're making it a blank canvas so the buyer can picture their life in it. Now, here's where I'm going to save you the most money of the whole webinar, the don't bother list. So this is my favorite slide actually, because this is where I stop people from lighting money on fire. The number one thing people think that they should do, that they should not do, is a major kitchen overhaul. Do not spend 50 grand to get 30 back. That is a losing game. And half the time, the buyer wanted to pick their own finishes anyway. The next thing is swimming pools. Now, I know we're on the Gulf Coast and it's hot and everybody loves the pool, but believe it or not, a lot of buyers see them as a liability or a safety issue with little kids. Not to mention, they're expensive to put in, they're expensive to maintain. This is a cost that you probably will not recoup. Okay. The next thing is converting bedrooms. So, what you don't want to do is turn a bedroom into a giant closet or an office. When you do that, you're literally lowering your bedroom count, and that can drop your appraised value. So, by doing that, you're paying money to make your house worth less. That doesn't make any sense. The next thing is high end flooring. So, like custom tile or exotic hardwood, these things rarely ever pay you back. A good quality neutral LVP flooring, or, as much as I don't like carpet, new carpet is good too. So, rule of thumb, if it's a luxury and not a necessity, you're probably not getting that money back. Keep it in your pocket. All right. The house is priced right. It's prepped right. Now people are going to come see it. Let's talk showings. All right. So the house is priced right. It's prepped right. Now people are going to come see it. So let's talk about showings. So preparing for showings. This is where a lot of the emotional stuff comes up, because now strangers are walking through your home. So let me give you the rules that actually get you offers. Rule number 1 is the one that nobody wants to hear. All right. So I say this so lovingly, but you have to leave the house. If you're home, the buyers are not coming. Okay. The first reason is the intruder effect. So when you're standing there, buyers feel like they're snooping in somebody's private life. They're not going to open your closets or the drawers. They're not going to linger. And they definitely won't say anything honest to their agent. They're going to rush through and leave, or maybe not even show up at all. The second thing, and this is the big one, psychological ownership. For somebody to make an offer, they got to mentally move in. They need to stand in the kitchen and imagine their coffee maker on the counter. And they can't do that if you're sitting on the couch reminding them that it's still your house. So here's the line that I want you to remember. A buyer who feels comfortable stays longer, and a buyer who stays longer is way more likely to buy. So go get a coffee, take a drive, and walk the dog, and let them fall in love without you watching. Now, something that I want to add in here that I forgot to put on my slide is, if you do have animals, and let's say it's a dog, and your dog likes to bark when people come over, it is in your best interest to make arrangements to get that dog out of the house before any showings. I work with a lot of buyers, and if we pull up to a house and we can hear the dog barking already, I can't tell you how many times buyers have just said, Alexis, I'm sorry for wasting your time, but we don't even want to see the house. We don't like animals, or we don't want to hear the barking, or we walked in the house and the barking was so loud, they can't think. They're in there for 30 seconds and they leave. So do yourself a favor, remove your pet um, before showings. And if there's any smells or anything like that from animals, do your best to take care of that as well, because that is also a big thing, especially for somebody who doesn't, like animals or has animals. They're not going to buy a house that smells like animals. All right, so here's the go time routine. So 3 zones and your house is show ready. So outside, clear the driveway of cars if you can. Hide the trash cans and the garden hoses, sweep the porch and the entryway, and make sure the doorbell works. So now, we have all the Ring doorbells. So a lot of people don't click the doorbells anymore. But on the older homes that still have the original doorbells, everybody clicks them. Everybody clicks them. It's just something, it's like a nostalgic feeling, I guess. The next thing is inside. So we want to clear every kitchen and bathroom counter, put away all the laundry and dishes, close all the toilet lids, and empty the trash. Okay, very simple. Now, the atmosphere. So this is where people this is where people skip this part, and it matters the most. Turn on every light in the house, every one of the lights. Okay. And then I want you to open the blinds and curtains and set the thermostat comfy to about 70 to 72. And then I want you to turn off all the TVs so it's calm and quiet. All right. So the goal is very simple. We want the house to be bright, spacious, and feel like the next owner can move in today. And you'd be amazed at what turning on the lights and opening the blinds does. And this costs you nothing. So one more showing topic, and this one's serious. I need 30 seconds of your full attention. All right. So most theft during showings is not somebody breaking in. It's actually people walking through a house that's open for showings and helping themselves. So I want you to protect these 3 things. Medications. This is one of the number 1 targets that I've heard of, especially pain medicine. Do not leave prescriptions in the medicine cabinet. Take them with you or lock them in a safe. If you have valuables like jewelry, cash, small electronics, or firearms, take those with you or lock them up as well. So I have a little rule that I tell my clients. If it's small enough to fit in a pocket, it's at risk. Okay, so put it in a locked drawer, safe, or take it off site. Now, the next thing is your identity. Mail, bank statements, passports, the checkbook sitting on the desk. Identity theft is real, and your info should not be laying out on the counter. Okay, so rule of thumb, if you value it, lock it up or take it with you. And it's not being paranoid, it's just smart. Okay, so now let's talk about money and what does selling actually cost you? All right. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this because sales price and what lands in your pocket are 2 very different numbers. And I never want a client surprised at the closing table. So let's pull back the curtain. Here's a little estimated example seller net sheet that I created. So let's look at it. So you have a purchase price for $250,000, and that is right around our market median as well, just so you know. Off of that, you got agent compensation. And keep in mind, this is negotiable. I'm just using these figures as an example. And then we have prorated taxes and HOAs. Maybe you're giving the buyer a credit for closing costs, and that's very common. A lot of buyers need help with closing costs. All right. And then you got your own closing costs like title, recording, that kind of thing. And then estimated repairs, and then a wood destroying insect report. So that is, the inspection to check for wood destroying insects. And then, a home warranty. Once again, this is negotiable as well. None of this is set in stone. So looking at this number, we got a purchase price for 250, but we actually are netting around 218.8. Okay. So don't get hung up on these exact figures because every deal is different. But the point is this, if you're working with me or any other agent in that matter, ask them to do a net sheet with you before you list your home. And then something that I do for my clients is anytime we get an offer, before my client accepts that offer, we're going to do a net sheet together because I don't like surprises and I don't want them to be surprised either. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's talk about the selling timeline. So 4 phases in a perfect world. No, for the most part, this is how pretty much all deals go. So phase one, prep. This takes anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks, depending on you. So things like decluttering, depersonalizing, knock out critical repairs, deep clean, things like that. And then we can send for, professional photography and videography. We can start on our marketing. And then phase two is when it goes active. So the listing goes live. We do show-ins, open houses, offers start coming in. We start negotiating terms. And then phase three, the contract's accepted. Deals usually take about 30 to 45 days to close. Then, we're going to look for the buyer to turn in their earnest money. They're going to get a home inspection. Typically, in our purchase contracts in Mississippi, the buyer has 10 business days to complete, all home inspections of their choice by a licensed home inspector or general contractor. And then, the appraisal and then financing. And then we're going to get clear to close. And then we'll move on to phase four, closing day. This is when the buyer is going to do their final walkthrough to make sure that the home is in the same condition as it was when they originally wrote their offer. We're going to go to the closing table. You're going to sign your documents. The buyers are going to sign their documents. The loan will fund and records. You're going to hand over the keys. So it sounds like a lot, but that's literally my job. Okay. My job is to walk you through every single one of these steps so it never feels overwhelming. Now, here's a question that I get constantly. Alexis, how do I sell and buy at the same time without ending up homeless? Well, that's a great question. And this is one of the things that keeps people up at night. What if I sell and then I can't find a place? Or what if I'm stuck moving twice? And this is a totally fair fear. But there are contract tools that are built exactly for this. So let's look at some of the clauses. So the rent back agreement, this is something that we used a lot during the COVID market. And this is when you sell your house, but you stay in it as a tenant for a set period, usually up to about 60 days after closing. Everything's negotiable though. So at this point, you got your money in your hand from your sale and you have extra time to get into your new place. Sounds good to me. Then you have a home sale contingency. Now, this would be for when you're buying. We're going to write it so the purchase is only final if your current home sells by a certain date. So this one is the most common in a buyer's market, and because it's going to protect you from owning 2 homes at once. Then we have a home purchase contingency, and this is for the seller side. So we can make your sale contingent on you actually finding a home next. So you're not forced out before you're ready. Now, the right clauses, these are a safety net. And if you use them well, you'll never have to move twice and you'll never have to panic. And that is the whole point. All right. So take a moment, stretch right now. I know we have been here for a few minutes. We're going to talk about the contract itself because there's some stuff in here that generally people get surprised by. Here we go. All right. So fixtures versus personal property. This one trips people up all the time. So here's the Mississippi rule. A fixture is anything physically attached to the home in a way that makes it part of the real estate. And fixtures automatically convey, meaning they stay with the home unless you say otherwise in writing. Okay, so what are we talking about? Ceiling fans, light fixtures, curtain rods. I'm talking about the rods, not necessarily the curtains. Built-in shelving, mailboxes, TV wall mounts, smart doorbells, security cameras. Okay. I tell my clients that if you need a tool to remove it, it's probably a fixture and it probably stays. So here's the one that's actually a heartbreak. If there's something attached that you have to take, like grandma's chandelier, you must exclude it in writing in the contract or just take it down before you ever list your home, before photos ever happen. Swap it out with something else that is not as sentimental. I have seen people fall in love with things like that. Like this one particular deal, it was a light fixture. And the lady got it from Italy, or her grandmother had got it from like Italy many, many years ago. So it was super old, super sentimental. The sellers did not take it down prior to listing their home. My buyer's seen it. And honestly, it's crazy to think this, but I honestly think that was why they wanted to buy the house, because once they found out that they're taking the light fixture down, the buyers no longer wanted the house anymore. It was something about that gave it character that they wanted. So just take it down, swap it out. All right. So the appraisal gap. Now, this is when bank's appraised value comes in lower than the price you and the buyer have already agreed on. And this does happen from time to time. So what do? Well, we have three options. The buyer covers the gap, meaning they're going to bring extra cash to make up the difference. And this is great for you if the buyer is able and willing. Now, the second thing is the seller lowers the price, and this most likely, this is the most common thing that happens right now on the Gulf Coast. The seller is going to drop the price to the appraised value so the loan can go through. Or you can meet in the middle. You come down a little and they bring a little cash and everybody gives some. But here's my pro tip. If the appraisal comes in low and I'm representing you and I don't think it's right, we're not going to just roll over. I'm going to submit a reconsideration of value. And basically, I'm going to create a case to the lender and send over with better comparable sales. And I'm going to fight for that number. Now, it doesn't always work, but you'd be surprised at how often it does. Especially in a shifting market, the appraisal is often the very last hurdle before the finish line. And like I said, I know how to get through these things. So I don't worry about them. All right. So let's tie a bow on this one. When you hire me, here's what you're actually getting: preparation and media. I guide you on which repairs matter. I'm going to give you real staging advice. We're going to bring in a high-end photographer, and a videographer as well. We could even do 3D tours, floor plans, you name it. Okay. Now, I like to tell people that every home is different. And so I like to put together personalized strategic marketing plans for each home, because, one home may be a great place to do an open house because of the neighborhood and where it's located. And then we may have a home that's in a rural area that, may not be a great idea to do an open house in. So we're going to talk about those things during that listing appointment and figure out what would work best for you as well as the market. Now, keep in mind, first impressions online are going to decide whether they even come and see it. And this is why professional photography and, very good marketing is going to come into play, because it's the first impression. 88% of buyers find their home online. So, MLS, Zillow, the big portals, social media, and I also have an agent network as well. So exposure will always be everything. The next thing is expert negotiation. Now, this is where I earn my keep. I'm looking at offers way beyond just the purchase price. I'm fighting for the best terms and I'm protecting your equity during the inspection phase. The next thing is transaction coordination. I'm going to manage every deadline. I'm putting the lender in a headlock. I'm wrangling the appraiser, the title company, all the paperwork. So you don't have to lie awake wondering if something got missed. So you get to live your life and I'm going to carry the stress. And the negotiation piece, let me show you exactly why the highest number isn't always the best deal. All right. So the highest price is not always the best offer. And let's just look at these two scenarios so I can make it make sense. So offer A is offering 300,000, but they are using an FHA financing loan and they're asking for $5,000 in seller's concessions and a 15-day home inspection period. Now, we have offer B, which is 295,000 cash, no concessions, and a 5-day inspection. All right. So offer A is 5 grand higher, right? Now, offer A is also an FHA loan, which is going to have, an appraisal. They may have some repair requirements, and they're also asking you to kick back 5,000 in concessions. So your net is barely different. Plus, the 15-day home inspection means your house is tied up in limbo for about 2 weeks. Now, if we look at offer B is cash, so we don't have to worry about financing contingencies and the appraisal, worrying about a financing to fall through. And they're not asking for any concessions, and they're only asking for a 5-day inspection. So you're through with due diligence in about a week. So every contingency, keep in mind, is an exit ramp for the buyer. Now, cash is one of the things that removes a bunch of these. So after knowing what we know now, which one do you think would be the best offer? So I would think that offer B would be a better offer. All right. So that is everything. Let me tell you how to reach me and what happens next. So this is my information. My cell phone number is the 228-236-7032 number, as well as my email address and my website. I also have another website that has a lot more helpful information that I just haven't updated on the slide, www.alexisdauphin.com. Be sure to check that out. There's some PDF guides on there. And then, so let's just think about this. If you're thinking about selling, even if it's about 6 months or a year out, it doesn't matter. Here's how simple the next step would be. If you wanted me to come out and meet with you and talk about listing your home, the first thing that we would do is schedule a walkthrough. So I'd come out and look at your home, look at the highest return on investment improvements, things that we talked about like deep cleaning, fresh paint, things like that. Keep in mind, these would just be suggestions. You wouldn't necessarily have to do these things. And then 2, I would put together a custom CMA for you using, real local data and, comparable homes that have sold, in the last 3 to 6 months. And we're going to create a pricing strategy the right way, not the Zillow way. And then 3, we're going to go through your net sheet so you know exactly what you're going to walk away with. Let me reword that. You'll have an idea of an estimate of what you would walk away with, because keep in mind, these are only estimates at the end of the deal. The title company also has fees and things like that. And so every deal is different. So it's just an estimate. And 4, we're going to plan your timeline and line up your sale and your next purchase for a smooth, seamless move. So that's it. No pressure, no obligation. I'm here to help you sell smart and get your home sold for the highest price and the best terms. So thank you all for spending so much time with me today. I hope that you have enjoyed this webinar. If you have a friend that is in the market, that would like to watch this webinar, feel free to share it with them. And, if you have friends or family that's looking for a great real estate agent, whether if they're buying or selling, I would love for you to think of me and pass on my information to them. So thank you all again. Reach out anytime and take care.